Hello, everyone. This is Caleb, as you well know. Welcome to this sort of first, to call it inaugural, product focused webinar for our partners. We're really excited to do this. We feel like this was a great opportunity to sort of start a new tradition of getting with you guys perhaps once a quarter. We'll kind of feel it out from here what the schedule is going to be, but to show you kind of what we've been working on, what you can expect, and what a better time than with this great big feature of Advisee registration. So before I jump right into the material, a couple of sort of logistical things I want to go through first. So this GoToMeeting is a little bit new to me in terms of the webinar system here, so I just want to double check a few things. First of all, obviously you guys can hear me, I can't hear you. But that doesn't mean that I don't want you to ask questions, because I really, really do want you to ask questions. So as a way of testing both the connection quality and whether or not you can see in your panel where to ask the questions, go ahead and just type a little something into, Robin, you already beat me to it. Thank you. Type something into the questions thing, then you can see where that is, and you know as we go along that you're there and you can hear me and I'm coming through and it looks like I am. So thank you guys for indulging me there. All right, so second test then that we got to do is to see if you guys can see my screen, which I know you can't just yet, but hopefully in just a second you'll be able to. Okay, can you guys now see my screen? All right. Looks like we've already got some questions, as well as we've got people saying they can see my screen. So I think that we've passed all the notes, and we then can jump into this. So I'll just start off by going through one quick overview of what I'll be talking about. So the plan generally is I want to do about 15 minutes or so of material that I've prepared on this particular topic, just to give you guys a sense of what you can expect come Tuesday. But really I want to leave enough time open at the end for questions. That's really the most important part of what we are doing today, obviously. So I am recording this, so if any of your colleagues or anyone else you know wants to view it, it'll be up hopefully tomorrow, assuming we can get it up on time. And with that said, yeah, ask questions as I go along. Obviously I won't be stopping for questions because I can't hear you guys, but that doesn't mean that I won't get through all of them at the end. We can go until 5:30 Eastern time, so we got a whole hour slotted for this. Hopefully that should be plenty of time. Okay, so let's jump into it. So I've got this nice overview here of kind of what I'll be talking about. So the first topic I want to cover is one that's been brought up by a couple folks already, so I thought I'd address it here. Why this? Why Advisee profiles? Why did we choose for our first big project of the year to be this? So I'll kind of give you a sense of the decision that was made there. Number two, obviously you want to see how it works, right? That's the fun part. So I'll give you a quick run through on what it's going to look like for your advisees who are doing this registration. And I'll talk about some of the other cases of people who obviously have the system already and what it'll look like when they jump back into the system. And then after that, I'll talk about what you can expect further along the line, but as it relates to this new Advisee profiles work. So I'll show you some screenshots, some designs that we've done that will be implemented in the following weeks, just not on Tuesday. So you'll get a sense for what the fully featured feature is of Advisee profiles. That should be fun. And then one last thing will just be a quick sort of thing I want to remind you guys about. And then after that, obviously we'll jump into the Q&A. Cool. So with that, let's go to topic one. So why Advisee profiles? Why did we choose to do this now? I think since I came on as director about a year and a half ago almost, sort of one gnawing thing that I think we've all realized, but I've sort of made a personal project of mine, is to get the sense of being smarter. How do we make this smarter for the people who are using it? And we feel like a really good job of making it easy, but that doesn't mean it's been smart. So really what this is aimed at doing is creating a much smarter experience for your advisees, who are ultimately the people that we're here to serve. Advisors obviously as well, and we'll continue to work on things for them, but we felt like for this software to really progress and to really continue to surprise and delight our users, it needs to be smarter. And so what that looks like to us is this number 1 here. So a smarter, more personalized experience. The unique filter, which you'll see in a little bit, is a huge thing. It seems so small because it is physically small on the screen, but we really feel like having this sort of tailored feel to the platform is really a prerequisite to anything we're going to be able to do in the future. And also it makes someone feel like they're not spending a lot of time sort of wading through the masses of profiles that you might have on a particular platform. So it's really meant to hone them in right away on what their specific interests are, and their interests can be broad. We definitely encourage that by the design decisions we've made along the lines of the career goals section, which you'll also see in a sec. But really the idea is that it feels for them, feels tailored for them. New advisor alerts. So this is something, again, we're talking about marketing and sort of the value that we're about to extract from this data. One thing, so these two sort of go together, new advisor alerts and targeted marketing. When we have people signing up, which they obviously trickle in, you guys have all experienced this, after your big launch, you have more advisors coming in. What a great way to pull back in users who may not have used it in a couple months and to say, hey, someone who is interested in, or who works in finance just joined the platform. Like, how about you speak to them, right? So it's a great way for your new advisors to perhaps get the first few consultations as soon as they sign up. It's a great way for your advisees to be reminded of the value that is present on the platform. So a lot of that sort of targeting this experience, again, is a big part of what we're doing. So the number 2, then, a better way to measure outcomes and recruit advisors. So this is really for you guys, for our champions, for those of you who are in the front lines bringing this platform to life at your particular businesses, universities, schools, what have you. We feel like this is going to be a huge data win for you guys. You've got a bunch more information on the people who are using your platform, and especially at some of you larger state schools that can be really hard to come by because of the bureaucracy or what else keeps you from that information. And if we can just ask for 15 seconds to a minute and a half of an advisee's time to give you a little more data, we definitely think that's worth it. So what we're giving you is the ability to customize the way that you go forth after getting this information. So you're going to get a lot of cool data on what people want to do. That helps you decide what type of advisors you want to go looking for. It also helps you, if you look at career goals and how they match outcomes, you can start to begin to see, especially if you're a career office, how effective the platform is and just your work is in general. If you can see people whose interests perhaps change, but then they go into those fields, you're going to get a lot better sense of outcomes. We feel like that's a big want from you guys. It's something we've heard a lot, that you want some more data on these advisees. And so that's exactly what we've delivered here. And then this is a bit of a smaller thing, but I know for a lot of you who try to keep up with people after they graduate, this is actually a pretty big thing, and that's up-to-date contact info on these advisees. So one sort of hindrance we have now is if we're reliant on emails that people have in school, a lot of times those go away once they graduate. And so what we're giving you, hopefully, is the ability to capture an email that might be a little more relevant after the fact. So we obviously have the Facebook integration that's going to be there day one. It'll be followed up sooner rather than later by the LinkedIn integration, so it'll be LinkedIn on both sides of the coin. And with that, you've got students using their personal emails, which is something that we can continue to engage them with rather than an outdated email. And then number 3, I have a policy of trying to use the word smorgasbord in whatever context I can, so I brought it in. It's my European, Norwegian roots there coming out. So a smorgasbord of new possibilities further down the road. I think this is kind of what I touched on in the beginning too. We feel like this is it has to happen. It's really a prerequisite for us to take this thing to the next level. Just a few things are listed here, but we have a whole host of them listed on some of our product planning session notes. A couple of them that stood out to me are the easy conversion from advisor to advisee. We're starting to gather some information, and we're doing these integrations so that once someone does graduate, it's really easy to convert them over to an advisor. Multiple requests at once. This is going to be, I think, a really killer feature once it's up and running, and this is a prerequisite to that as well. This multiple requests being if you have specific interests or a specific need, like an interview coming up in a month, that is a particular use case that we are underserving right now, because what you really want to do in that scenario is you want to ask a bunch of people to help, right? You're in need. You really want to get as many people in as possible. And if you can make one request a little more broadly to say, hey, I need help with a finance interview that I have coming up. And if you can get a few people notified, and hopefully you get enough to where you're satisfied on the consultation side of things, that can all be managed, but it can't be managed without a dashboard, and it can't be managed without some more information about the user and a little more security, which a password gives us. So that's a big one for us. And as well as eventually an advisee directory, sort of a way for these advisors who are engaged to be able to look at some of the current advisees, some of the current students, and that can be obviously an open door to recruitment or to lots of cool residual effects that we're excited to explore. So hopefully that's a bit of a long-winded version of why we've decided to do this. We couldn't be more excited, to be honest. We're really psyched that this is finally done. It's something we've been working on and toying with for a long time, and we are really, really excited to get it over the finish line. So without further ado then, I will flip over to my browser and jump into the demo portion of the webinar. So a couple things before I jump into the demo. Oops, excuse me one sec. I'm just going to pause the streaming for just one quick second. Okay, so a couple things before I jump into the demo of the actual functionality. You are viewing, this is probably the most nerve-wracking thing you can possibly do, is demoing some incomplete features on a staging environment, which is not a live environment, obviously, but heck, we're doing it, so bear with me. Just a few things to note about this process. One, what you see here is still subject to change. For the most part, it's 95% set in stone. But there's the other 5%. We're always tweaking, always finding a better way to do things. So it may not look exactly the way it's going to look when you see it here today. Another thing to note, as our staging environment is quite a bit slower than our production environment, so it might be a little brutal at times in terms of the speed. We obviously don't need as much horsepower for our testing environment as we do to facilitate production, which is where all of your platforms lie. So no need to worry about the speed. That's just natural in this testing environment. And you might notice just some odd behavior. It is a testing environment, so there's just a few rules. Like you can see, here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. You can see here that there is no HTTPS protocol in place on staging because it's not, obviously there's no live data, so we don't need it here per se because people aren't accessing it through different ports. So I might get a warning or two while I'm going through this that again, it just has to do with staging. And we don't, just to save space on our testing servers, we don't support our profile images. So you'll see these placeholders where there would typically be a profile photo. So a lot of caveats, but I still think it's going to be a great demo and a great chance for you to see the live registration in action. So with that, let's jump into it. So I'm going to be, for the sake of this demo, say I'm a new student, say new student. I've heard about this through marketing materials or through a friend on campus or through a campus ambassador, and I am jumping into the staging environment, I'm jumping into the platform and I am prompted to go here. This might be a little bit of a roundabout way if you're sending an email invite. If you're sending out an email invite, you'll probably send them the registration link directly, which won't look exactly like this, but very similar. And once they click that link, they are taken here. So let's just go through it. Obviously, we need some contact information. You'll note a few choice differences than what you have currently in place for registration. So we obviously need a little more information, including a password, which is key. So I'll fill this in quickly. The phone number, we still do collect this here because obviously we want to still give people the option to have the system call them if they're on the consultation, and also keep supporting this new, or starting out new, it'll be new for the advisees, but this SMS functionality that we've had for a long time. Time zone is obviously important as they're scheduling their demos, their consultations. This is new, so the profile picture. So if I had gone through the Facebook process, which I unfortunately can't due to the HTTPS lack thereof, I guess, on the staging environment, but had I gone through the Facebook integration, I would have all this information pulled in via that, so I wouldn't have to enter any of it, which is very handy for a student who's perhaps in a bit of a rush. But should I decide not to use the Facebook integration, I go this direction and I choose a photo that'll be uploaded there. If your school is utilizing the programs functionality, this will be a time for the student to identify which program they belong to. And then obviously crucial information here is their graduation year. So we're asking them, even for more specificity than we have in the past, we want to get every bit of information here that we can, and that includes day and month, which, as I said before, will be helpful when we're talking about converting advisees to advisors. So that is step one, pretty quick. And then career goals. This is, again, the real magic. This is what we had in mind when we first started setting up this project and deciding to go forth with it. So what is it doing? So it's getting the student in a frame of mind where they're thinking about maybe just the types of things that they want to do or might want to do. Again, this is going to be highly editable. We're not asking them to sort of lock this in right now, and you'll see a little bit of that in the demo of the filter. But really the idea here is that they just give us a sense of the things that they're considering, right? So we've got 3 slots per category, a category being function, industry, companies, or location. This is really simple to use. They just click here. The drop-down menus is something a lot of different websites utilize this type of framework for looking through a pick list, and they can start by either perusing it via just scrolling down like I'm doing now and clicking one, and that'll place it into the next open slot, or they can start typing and it'll auto-complete with an option. They can hit enter and that will again fill into the next open slot. We're only requiring that they do 1, so if they're trying to just skip through it, not a problem, they'll just skip through it. But we would love 3, because what we're going to be doing with the algorithm on the My Recommended Advisors filter, once you see that live, is we're going to be weighting these things. So we are asking for their rankings, obviously. 1 being the most, 2 being middle, 3rd being the least. But the idea is that we can then, in a smart way, present them with advisors that are the most relevant to perhaps the least relevant, but a nice group of everything. So yeah, so I'll just keep going. Industries, same thing. To say, why not? Alternative medicine, let's do it. And obviously, technology is important. And let's say I decide, I'm a little more into technology than I am alternative medicine. I can easily click and drag and change the ordering there. Companies. Here you'll have to start typing one, so you will have to have something in mind. But again, we're going to be auto-completing like that. So it's pretty easy to find who you're looking for. And then locations, same story. So you could say New York. You could say my hometown, Minneapolis. It's pretty simple. And then I hit enter, and I am taken to the, again, right to the browsing section. So I'm taken to the advisors, and I'm good to go. And my picture, which isn't here but will be when it's on the live version, will show up here in the same way it does for advisors. You probably recognize that there. And then the filter, which you'll see in just a sec, will show up under the keyword search. It'll be checked by default, but it'll also be noted via a little miniature site tour, which will say, hey, thanks for filling that out. We've got a filter over here that's pulling your recommended advisors into one column. That's where it is. You can refer to it whenever you want. Some along those lines. I don't have the copy exactly memorized, but that's the idea. And it'll also be directly editable from that filter. But overall, it's a really simple process. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to do a massive registration process because we know we're dealing with a lot of students and a lot of undergrads, and that could mean danger for their attention spans. So again, we've tried to keep it very, very simple and also very fun. And then I'll jump quickly into the dashboard, which is important because if you are a student who has already used the platform and you're just trying to get back in to do some consultations, we will need you to create a password. That's the only difference from what you previously would have what you previously would have done as an advisee and what you need to do now. And that'll be done on this edit page. So we'll take people directly to here to change that password. They won't have to fill out any of the information right away. We're going to keep that optional for a while to give people a chance to get familiar with it before they're forced to do it. I don't have an exact date on that, but once I do, I will for sure let you guys know what that is. But here's where they'll change that password. And then for now, this is just a place where they edit this profile that they just created, where they edit some of their career goals, that type of thing, any contact info, obviously. but that will be added to as we add features, which you will see in our next section. So really, that's it, guys. I mean, it's a lot of ado about a very little feature as it pertains to the actual Advisee. It's big for us, obviously. It's big for the future of the platform. But we've, again, in sort of the spirit of what we like to do, we've made it as simple as possible. So with that, let's jump back over to the PowerPoint here. We just did the demo. I'm going to take a quick drink of water, but I'll give you guys a chance to sort of soak that in and perhaps ask any questions before I keep blabbering on. So let's take a 10-15 second little break, and then I'll jump back into it with some discussion over what is coming next. All right, I'm back. Just reading some of your questions, guys. They look great. I appreciate all the thoughtful question asking, and I'm excited to get to those. But I do appreciate you guys putting in the effort to create such great questions, so thank you. All right, what is coming next? So that's obviously, that's the framework, the foundation, if you will, to this feature, but it's not, we don't feel like that's the entire complete feature that we want to build. So there are two other big components to this that I've already mentioned, but I'll just show you real quick so you have a sense of what they'll look like and how they will behave. The first big one is the consultation dashboard. So this has got to be top 2 requests that we've ever had in terms of being an advisee on the platform, not just from you guys, the partners, but from the advisees themselves. It makes sense. Because we haven't had a profile system set up for them, we haven't been able to assign these consultations in a nice, handy way that they can look at them and deal with them. And now we do. So what you see here is just an advisor profile, or sorry, an advisor consultation dashboard, because it's going to be exactly like this one. We're basically recreating, reusing, retooling some of that code to create the dashboard for these advisees. So they've got some great options here. They can look at stuff that's requiring their action. So if they're in the midst of setting up a consultation, they'll be able to look at that all at once and deal with them easily in one place. It's very handy. They'll be able to view their upcoming consultations. Obviously, another big plus. It's often hard to keep track of these, especially if you're not putting them on your calendar. That's a good way to keep them all centralized. And then they can obviously look at their completed ones, and they can view the advisors they talked to and the feedback that they gave, and then they can easily recreate that consultation. So that's a big, big plus. So that'll be coming up, I believe, before the filter, but I'm not actually sure. It'll probably be a matter of whatever team finishes their feature first. That'll be the one that gets to go first. And the other one, as I mentioned, is the custom filter. So this is going to be, it's a little bit tiny on this screen, but if you can see at the top left corner there, it says My Recommended Advisors. The completed version will have a little edit link, which will be right next to the My Recommended Advisors text. And using that, then, they can go and edit any of their information that they've added in terms of those career goals, and they can therefore kind of tool their particular results for that. So we're really encouraging them to manipulate the filter, to figure out, okay, these aren't quite the people I had in mind, and to work with it until they have what they feel like is a good representation of what they're looking for. So that's what the filter is going to do. Again, it's one of these things that looks very simple, but it's very complex in the back end. That's meant to be the magic that we're trying to create here. So that's what's coming next. It's a pretty short section there, but that's really it. So again, just to refresh, the consultation dashboard and the custom filter will not be there on Tuesday. It'll just be the registration that you saw, but these will be following in the next few weeks. As well as, I know this is from our last email, but the credit removal will also be a part of this process. And before you guys get worried, we will be having credits added automatically when people register, so you still don't have to worry about the credits thing. That is going to be going away. but probably not before this initial Advisee registration is live. So that's sort of the order of things. Okay, and then one last thing. We want your stories. This is Allison. Allison is wonderful. She is in UMass with our friend Katie, just working with our campus ambassadors there and getting that set up. But another big part of her job as our new senior manager of engagement is taking your stories that are coming from your platforms and creating nice, beautiful, well-written blog articles and marketing materials that you guys can use at your leisure. This is a service that we are providing for free, of course, and this is something that we're really, really passionate about. We think it's really integral to this platform being a success at your school or at your organization. Is you've got to tell these stories. There's so many compelling stories coming out of our platforms, and we need a way to tell them in a very concise way, and we feel like we've got a good handle on how to do that now. So we are opening up the floodgates to you guys. We want to have you guys point us in the direction of good stories so that we can help you tell those stories, and that's a big part of what Allison is doing with us at firsthand. She's on week 4, so if you just want to send her an email of encouragement, that would be great too. But hopefully you guys have some great stories and we can help you capture those. So with that, I'm on to the Q&A. So I will jump out of my PowerPoint. I know someone asked if this PowerPoint will be live. It definitely will be. I will put it either in an email or perhaps attach it to the webinar somehow. But yes, I will definitely make it available. It's not very big, but you can obviously have access to it. Okay, so with that, let's do questions. So cool, I got done in under half an hour. That's great. I'm just going to open the GoToMeeting thing, and I'll just take questions as they come. I can jump back into the demo if you guys want to see something that I went by quickly. But in general, I'll just go down the questions in the order that they came in, and hopefully we can get them all answered. You have to just give me a second on each one to read it, obviously, but it shouldn't take too long. Okay. Scott asks a question, can the student profile be turned off in local platforms? So unfortunately, Scott, it can't be turned off. When we do this big of an effort with our data, when we're sort of changing the entire data structure of a person, in this case an advisee, that has to be something that we share across the ecosystem. There's obviously stuff like the look and feel of each platform that's very easy to customize because it is very individual. But there's these very architectural issues like data, like a user that we simply have to keep homogeneous. So we are going to be implementing it across the entire ecosystem. So this includes people who are booking consultations at evisors.com. We're going to still get this information from them as well. That's a good question. All right, a lot of people can see me. That's good. That's good. Yeah, Steve asks a good question. If students are using their Facebook account to log in, how does the system know if they can actually access the system since they aren't using their college.edu email address? So Steve, this is kind of a case-by-case basis, but some platforms are obviously more open than others. So we just have to figure out a way with you guys at Cornell or whoever else is curious about this issue to figure out a system for monitoring that, because again, it's too difficult to do in a broad way, but there are ways we can help you monitor that, since obviously there will be different email access points getting into the platform once this is live. Yep, Samuel, the PowerPoint will be made available. Sorry guys, I'll start reading these questions. That might be a little less confusing. Margie asks, what if a student advisee is undecided when building their profile? So Margie, that's a good question. Honestly, we thought about it, and we hopefully made a system that feels like it's very flexible, that even if they do feel like they're not certain about something, that they're encouraged to at least do one, if they want to do 3. If it turns out that that's annoying people, we can always pivot on that. We're going to be keeping a keen eye on the way that this plays out in our platforms. So if we get a sense that there is attrition happening because people perhaps got to function, or sorry, they got to like location and they couldn't think of one they wanted to do, that they dropped off, we'll obviously be retooling if need be. But we do hope, and we think, and just from testing with some random users and stuff like that we were working with, this seems to be a pretty low intensity type of interaction that we're presenting here. So our hope is that they don't feel pressured or locked into whatever decision they make, that they'll be able to edit that at a later time. That's a good question though, Margie. Thank you. Margie just wrote, not sure about industries. So I'm guessing that's a modifier to your last question, Margie, which is what if they're not sure about those things like an industry? Again, yeah, they can always go back and edit. Like I said before, we've got that filter there that will have an edit link. So it's meant to, and I think it does evoke the fact that this is something that you can be flexible with. So change it if you want, move it around, make sure it fits you, and don't feel like this is the only way to use the platform, because it isn't. If you want to turn the filter off, you just click it off like any of our other filters. Robin asks, will students have the option to not be seen by advisors? Do they just not fill it out? So Robin, the student themselves won't actually, this profile won't be visible to advisors in any way. And I'm not even positive if the profile photo will be even visible to them. It's only visible to the students. So this is really just a lens for them to view the website in a more personalized way. So it really doesn't affect what the advisor sees about them. The advisor doesn't have a good way of knowing that they showed up on this particular filter. It's just, again, a way for the student to organize, or the advisee to organize their experience. That's a great question, though. Katie asks, can a student bypass the questions about interests, or is there an, I don't know, undecided option? And that's a good idea, Katie. It's something we can definitely consider. It sort of goes with the question about if they're undecided, what can they skip something and they're just not quite sure. Currently, we don't have that in place, but again, this is going to be something we're going to take a keen look at as it plays out in the real world. We will certainly, again, keep an eye on that, and hopefully people feel like they can add a couple, and then at some point they can remove them or change them, etc. Susan asks, are the advisors that are shown on the main Browse Advisor page customized to that advisee? So currently, no, because the filter won't be in place. So even on the staging environment, when I'm looking at the advisors, this is what you would see now. So if I actually typed in, for you, Suzanne, the UCSD here and went to that spot, you would basically see the same list of advisors that are there currently. And then what's going to happen is once that filter is in place, that'll be the default. When someone returns to the list of advisors, they'll get that mark or that box checked, and then it'll be what you described as the page customized to that advisee. That'll be a group of people that we feel like fit them based on their interests. It's also going to be something, it's going to be smart enough to not present, like if they have really oddly niche interests, we obviously wouldn't want to present them with a blank set of advisors. So we're going to do some smart logic to make sure that there's plenty of fallbacks, as we go kind of like map industries together. Like if this one fits you, then perhaps this one will, and give them at least a good handful that they can talk to, even if they have very niche interests. Thank you for that question, Suzanne. It's great. Thank you, Scott. Scott said I was doing a great job. Thank you. Robin asks, can advisees see each other or just advisors? So advisees cannot see each other. So that's something that, if I could just give you a little more historical context, it's something we had thought about if that would be a benefit, but we just realized conceptually that that doesn't really stay in line with like the vision of what we want advisees to be doing. If they're going to contact each other via a network of some sort, it's definitely not going to be us. We can be totally honest with ourselves about that. And if we created a separate directory that isn't just these vetted advisors, then it sort of mixes the messaging of the platform and kind of confuses the issue. So we finally just decided to kill that idea, quite frankly, because we felt like, look, this isn't a platform where people seek out advisors. It can be a platform where vetted advisors, in the case of you guys at Georgetown, where vetted advisors are simply networking with each other and setting up consultations. But then there's another way to do that isn't, having a separate just advisee only view of things with other advisees in that. So that's a really long way to say no. It's, again, still an experience of you are seeking advice, you go through, you find the people you want to talk to, and you talk to them. We're just making it a lot smarter. Sarah asks, are all the profile sections required? They are indeed required. So all 4 of those sections, and also the majority of the contact information are all required fields, but not obviously 3 per goal field. Only 1 per goal field is required. Oh, Ashley, great question. Do you consider LinkedIn integration for advisees, not just Facebook? Yes, so that is, I think I said this already, but that is coming. We just couldn't quite get our ducks in a row on time. And the reason that we wanted to get this up and running is because we've got a lot of things in the backlog that are really fun and we need to get kind of out the door as well, but we can't do them all at once. So we're going to get this one out the door, and then people will be able to use that LinkedIn integration, and we'll let them know. But that is coming down the pipe as well. Steve asks, if students already have access to the platform, how will they be prompted to complete their profile? So that will be done with a dialog box, Steve. Once they, so at the main screen where it says if they don't have a, here, I'll just get back to it here. Oops. I accidentally clicked on Caitlin there. So let me just log out here. All right, so I'm logged out. So say I'm coming back to the platform. I'm not recognized by my browser because it's been a while. There's this no password yet set one. So if I click that, then I'll get an email that I use that basically links me back to where I just was when I was signed in. That'll let me create that password from that first contact info screen. And then from there, you're not required, even though we are going to note that, hey, these new profile fields are available to you, but we're not going to require them. And again, this is because we want people who have a pending consultation they're trying to get to. We're not trying to delay them from getting there. That's obviously would be bad. Thank you, Steve. Tom asks, what are privacy protections for students? So Tom, I'm not sure if you're referring to the access question similar to what Steve asks about how people get it on, or if you're referring to what privacy protections we have with their data. The second question, since I've already kind of answered the first, well, one would be there's obviously a terms of service here. They can read about their data. That hasn't changed, remains the same. But in terms of the way that we're protecting the data on an IT side, that hasn't changed. So that data is living in the same place that we are protecting all of the advisor data, which is in super secure Rackspace hosting with all of our, I could go down our litany of security protocols, but that's boring. So nonetheless, it's there. It's the same type of protection that our advisors would get. Hey, Sam, you just asked, considering this is a more professional career connection platform, why did you choose Facebook instead of LinkedIn? I answered that partially, but I'll go ahead and you asked another sort of good clarification there, like why I choose Facebook at all. A big part of that, honestly, is because we did a bunch of research and we looked at our demographics and we found, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to say an amen, that students don't really have LinkedIn accounts, which is very boggling to us who work at a company that works so closely with LinkedIn. But it's the truth, and I think that we want to make this as smooth as possible for students. So while, yes, it is career focused, we found that students don't necessarily perceive the fact that they have to use Facebook as, okay, this is now a social platform. They more perceive that to mean, oh, I'm able just to share credentials. Like, this is convenient for me. I can now use my Facebook password where I would need to create a new one, and so that's nice. So Facebook integration is used, I'm sure, as you guys know, for all sorts of different platforms that people are using. But again, you are right, Sam, that we obviously would benefit from having a LinkedIn integration as well. So that's why we're going to add one. Suzanne asks, Susan, I keep switching back and forth between Susan and Suzanne. I guess I never knew which one it was, but please let me know. Another great question from Suzanne. Are there plans to have an open API? Not really concrete plans. In general, yes, we really do want to move in that direction where people can start hooking into alumni directories a lot better, and there's all sorts of residual goodness from having that API. It's just a matter of this was the big focus for so much of our development time over the last few months that it just hasn't been something we've been able to address. But it's a great question, it's a great request, and it's something we will definitely keep considering and keep working on, especially as we start to look at other partners who are approaching us about integrations. It just is becoming more and more of a priority. So no clear indication yet of when it might happen, but it's definitely something that we have on our radar. Margie asks, what if a student withdraws from our college? So yeah, Margie, in this case, that wouldn't really change as with this feature. We'd obviously, if you want to remove someone from the system, then the same ability for that applies both for advisors and advisees. So you can expire an advisee's access so they can no longer book consultations, just in the same that you can reject an advisor to make sure that they no longer are able to receive consultations. So those same controls for you guys apply. So that shouldn't really change here. Trish, you're asking for, can you provide a detailed instructions handout we can brand locally and share with our students? Yes, we can definitely do that. So if you want to send me an email after the fact, so because I'll just not able to really write it down right now, and I want to make sure we capture that request, and then we can go back and forth on what you would like. And I guess for anyone else on the call too that offer stands, we are happy to help with. Obviously, there might be some materials that need to be changed. We know this going into these changes, but we obviously we need to keep moving the product forward, so we have to do what we can to do them to sort of balance the need for up-to-date materials, or sort of, I guess, the changes that will bring to those materials with what we feel are really pressing product needs. But we don't want to just give you guys a bunch more work. That's sort of the worst case scenario for us. So we've added 2 more client success people over the last 2 months, so we've got more capacity. We've got our wonderful customer service team, so we've got the manpower to help you guys do that. And I think people who have used us in the past for this type of thing can attest to our quick turnaround and our ability to help you guys find the right messaging. So yes, Trish, we would definitely be happy to help with that. Tom asks, will advisors be permitted to message advisees they have not worked with? Nope, that is still a functionality that we aren't really considering. That would be sort of outside. I'm guessing what you mean is sort of outside the consultation bubble, which is where you can obviously say whatever you want to each other via the email system. This will not open up the door for advisor to advisee access, but like I said before, it does at least lay the groundwork if we wanted to build something like that. So not specifically planned, not in this current release that's going to happen on Tuesday, but something that if we can find a way to do, we may end up doing at some point. Trish asks, will current students be prompted to complete their profile when they log in for the first time after you launch? Yep, so that was what I was kind of going over before, which is when people click the password reset, because they have to create that password, they get brought into the section that I showed you before when I was signed in, and it's there that they're asked to, if they want to, then edit their profile or add the information, but if they don't want to, they don't have to, they can just go on with their day. Thank you, Trish. So Suzanne asked a clarifying question. So alumni won't be able to search for students. That is still true. Yes, alumni still will not be able to search for advisees for people who do not have access as an advisor. That remains the same. Katie asks a great question. Are the industries and job functions that students choose from tied to those available in LinkedIn, similar to the advisor experience? The answer there is yes. So those are going to be the same lists that we get from LinkedIn and are sort of tied to by ball and chain sometimes, but tied to nonetheless. Those will be the same. And then the state as an option. Yes, Katie, I'll say the question first. Katie says, I saw the state as an option with this transfer over into the location filter, which Katie's referring to when you're browsing the advisors. You have access to this locations filter that is currently only country-based. So not right away, Katie, is the answer, but we are exploring and getting pretty far in developing ways to make this, location filter a lot smarter and be able to include like metropolitan areas, which is a big request. So that is going into the rest of the platform as we figure out how to better represent the advisors who are using LinkedIn. So not right away, but again, we realize it's going to be a crucial benefit that we need to capitalize on. So it's definitely something in the hopper right now. Tom asks, can a student invite 2 advisors to a call? Yeah, I guess, Tom, that would have to kind of happen outside of the consultation process, which is done between 2 parties. But if they share the conference code information with another advisor, like once they receive it for the call, that advisor will be able to use that code and join the call. So those actually are open. Like any conference system, you can usually use that same conference code to access from multiple phones. So yes, that is definitely possible. Suzanne asks about creating a test account, that we had given you one. Yes, we had, and will you need a password now? So yes, the test account, the one that we give you, will not work. You'll just have to, we can help you create a new one, Suzanne. That won't be a problem at all. Trish asks, currently students use their school email as a way to ensure only our students gain access to the site. Is this measure still in place? It's going to be a little bit different now, Trish, but again, just because we have so many different approaches to the way that students get access to the platform, that's probably a better conversation for us to have one-on-one, just because we can figure out a way to make it work for you, but there isn't sort of now a broad solution to that. So feel free, again, once you're following up with me about the specific help materials that you needed, that we can talk about this as well. Tom asks, when students accept an advisor, will advisors, I think you mean advisee, when students accept an advisee, will advisors see their profile? Then they will not. So they don't have access to this information that the student filled out. That is only for the student to see. Okay, it's Suzanne, not Susan. It's for anyone that was keeping score at home. Thank you, Suzanne. Lenny asks, when is this release taking place? Time of day? I don't actually know, Lenny. That's a great question. So I assume we try to do them early so that if there are issues, we can work through it. But with things this big, we tend to find the best gap in terms of when consultations are being done. So I'm guessing we'll go the latter on this case to find a nice gap. But I will put a note to ask our VP of engineering, and we'll get back to you on specific time of day. I know you have a demo on the 17th, so I'll make sure we space plenty of time between that and the release. Robin asks one more time, what exactly is happening on Tuesday? Students will get an email prompting them to fill this out. Yep, so what will happen on Tuesday is once we know when exactly we're going to be pushing the feature, we will alert students, and we're not going to alert all the students, we're only going to alert advisees who have actually gone through a consultation. We felt like, and if you want something different here, obviously we're happy to do that, but we felt like it may not be necessary to alert everyone, because if they haven't used it, then they don't really have a frame of reference for the old way. So we could just let the people know who will be affected by it. So on Tuesday, once it goes live, we will send out a very short message to those who have done consultations saying, we've got this new feature, it's going to help you improve this experience, it's going to be great, and then it will give them a link to go fill it out if they want to at that time, but they won't have to, obviously, if they don't want to. Hey, Steve. Yeah, Steve asks if I could demonstrate what happens when you click the Facebook password, or sorry, the Facebook link is clicked. I can explain it. I can't actually show it because it'll get blocked from due to the HTTPS. So incoming non-HTTPS encrypted stuff to Facebook gets all messy because it's just a security protocol they have in place. This won't be the problem on the live demo, but it's very similar to when you're signing up as a advisor using the LinkedIn integration, which is it sort of routes you to like a screen that makes you enter your credentials, and then once you've entered them correctly, it just sends you right back into the flow of registration. So if you look at the advisor registration, it's very similar to that. Trish asks, what is Caleb's email address? So my email address is caleb@firsthand.co. It's also, if you received an email about this update, that return email is to me. And it's also, I think, listed on the website if you want to look there. But hopefully it's caleb@firsthand.co. Katie asks, what day is the change happening? So that is, again, Tuesday. Tuesday the, what is it now? It's the 16th. Yeah, 16th. All right, Katie, I got your note about your demo, so let's have an offline conversation to make sure that you obviously don't get a push happening during your demo. So thank you for letting me know, and I'll make sure to avoid that time and make sure everything's in order before it happens. Katie asks, will the email that advisees have booked, or sorry, will that email to advisees who have booked consultations be branded for each university? It will indeed. We will definitely brand it for each university. So it obviously feels a little more official, a little more specific. Trish asks, are alums now able to sign up as Get Advice and connect with advisors? They are able to, Trish, but that actually isn't a change per se. That's always been there for schools or for people on our platforms that are using Advisee registration. So that's always been available to them, depending on the rules that we've set up, like we've been talking about sort of email masks for universities or open policies or what have you. That's always sort of been a thing that advisors can do. So yes, this isn't changing that, but yeah, again, it's something that's been there for a while. Okay, well, we've still got about, let's see here, 5 minutes, and I have run out of questions. So if you guys have a last minute one, I'll just take another sip of water, and then I will jump back into things if there are more questions. But I do, as you guys probably saw on my calendar, I have Wollongong, which is a beautiful university in Australia that I will be onboarding in just a couple minutes. So it looks like Tom has one more question. What will be the advisee to advisor conversion process? That's a good question, Tom. So we're not quite sure yet is the answer. We know it's going to be really easy. We just don't know that mechanism and that feature, I guess, in itself is a little out of scope right now. But we are recognizing that it's going to be a lot easier with the LinkedIn integration in place on both sides. So that was my point there. Trish asks, can an advisor create their own advisee profile using the same email address? They can indeed. So those two profiles, the advisee and the advisor, don't speak to each other. So they can have a career goals thing set up as an advisee, and then they can have their account as an advisor. That's not a problem. Sam asks, do you have a timeline on Advisee's dashboard? Sort of, Sam. I think it's going to be 3 weeks at the most is what I've been told. I was going to say off record, but I realize now that I'm totally on record, so that's not possible. But that's again, that's like an internal guess. I don't know specifically when, but I've seen it. It already exists, but it just hasn't been thoroughly tested. That's the reason it's not coming with this first launch. If that makes sense. Whew! Okay, guys, you asked a lot of questions, and that was really cool, and I think this was really helpful. I hope, if you guys don't mind, once we're done, maybe just send me a little feedback to my email or reply to the email where you learned about the webinar on. I would love to hear what you thought of this, how we can make the format better. If this is something you would find value in, even if there's not a big release, just to kind of talk about the product, talk about best practices, at what regularity, all that stuff would be really great information for us. Again, one more time, I'm going to plug the stories stuff because that's a really cool program I'm trying to get up and running real fast. We've already got some from Biola and from Maryland, and it's got some cool schools working with us already on those, and you'll see the first version of those on our blog once they're ready, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I gotta say thank you guys. I'm so touched that so many of you made the time to come out and do this with me and help me walk you through it, and I think it was valuable. So again, really appreciate it. I hope you all have the rest of your day or afternoon, depending on what area of the country or the world you're in, and I guess I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.